170 views for us. We even had people from America that turned us because it's alhamdulillah, some shopping. MashaAllah. We're just waiting for the ladies to join us, inshallah, and we'll start. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi wahdahu wassalatu wassalamu ala man la nabiyya ba'dahu. Allahumma rabbi israh li sadri wa yassir li amri واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم اللهم افتح لنا بالخير واختم لنا بالخير واجعل عواقب أمورنا بالخير بيدك الخير والعافية إنك على كل شيء قدير السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته MashaAllah, Alhamdulillah. Like to tell you that I'm greatly honored by the fact that people are coming for the class, alhamdulillah. And we all know that there's a number of programs happening in preparation for the month of Ramadan. Our own Masjied will be having a program, you know, in 2 weeks time, inshallah, pre-Ramadan events. And you also know it's month in, so people have a lot of things to attend to. But alhamdulillah, you took the time to come. May Allah Ta'ala reward you. May Allah Ta'ala make this, you know, the presentation a means of goodness and khair and barakah. And also for those people who are joining us via the YouTube channel, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant this class to be beneficial for them also. I hope people find it beneficial. It might be slightly different to what they may have traditionally been exposed to as a Hajj class. Hopefully they get some benefit, because from what we understand that we had more than 170 views for last week's class via the YouTube recording. So that was very encouraging. In fact, we received some people as far as America that also, you know, watched on the YouTube. So we are hopeful Allah Ta'ala make it a source of blessing for all of us, and may Allah Ta'ala grant that whoever is going for Umrah very soon, going for Hajj very soon, inshaAllah, that Allah Ta'ala grant that some of the things we are mentioning here to you will be of benefit to you, inshaAllah. So last week we concluded the discussion of the ruling of Hajj, and that all the scholars agree that Hajj is compulsory, meaning wajib or fard. In fact, generally in the Shafi'i madhab, which we commonly practice upon here in Cape Town, we don't normally have a distinction between wajib and fard. The only place where we do have a distinction between wajib and fard is actually in Hajj. When it comes to our salah, when it comes to our fasting, when it comes to wudu and so many other ahkam, when fard is mentioned, we generally understand that wajib and fard is the same. The only place where it is considered not to be the same is in the chapter on Hajj, and the reason for that is due to the different penalties applicable to a person leaving out certain different actions within the Hajj. So we'll come to that still, inshallah. But generally, when we're speaking about compulsory, for our purposes, it means that it is wajib, it is fard, upon those who meet the requirements for Hajj. At least once in a lifetime, a person should try to perform Hajj. But that is not the maximum. That is the minimum a person should try to do at least once in his lifetime. And we all know that Hajj is very expensive, and the alternative to that obviously is to perform Umrah, and especially if one is not by the financial means to go for Hajj, but is by the financial means to perform Umrah, because according to the Shafi'i madhab, both Hajj and Umrah are wajib. And especially why I'm saying in Ramadan, if a person can go for Umrah, although Ramadan Umrahs are generally also a bit more expensive than other times, but Nabi Sallam tells in a hadith that Umrah fi Ramadan ta'adilul Hajj, that to perform Umrah in the month of Ramadan, it equates, in terms of reward, as if a person has performed Hajj. So from the Quran, the proofs for the Hajj being compulsory is وَلِلَّهِ عَلَى النَّاسِ حِجُّ الْبَيْتِ لِمَنِ اسْتَطَاعَ إِلَيْهِ السَّبِيلِ وَمَنْ كَفَرَ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيٌّ عَنِ الْعَالَمِينَ, that it is been made compulsory upon all mankind. So Hajj is not a new ibadah. Hajj has been made compulsory upon all mankind. However, to enter the haram, you have to be Muslim. So a non-Muslim cannot come to the Mashair, the holy sites of Hajj, and perform Hajj. It is only for those who have iman that are permitted to enter into the precincts of the Mashair. And for those who are capable, we're going to have a detailed discussion still on what is meant by istita'a, what is meant by person having the means. We generally understand it only to mean money. However, according to the fuqaha, it entails a number of other requirements, and we will find that to some degree there was a relaxation in those requirements for many years when it came to Hajj. The reality is that some people performed Hajj, but Hajj in itself was not actually wajib upon them. Like you find a person who is disabled. In terms of the requirement of man istata'a, a person is required to be in such physical good health that he is able to take care of himself. So the person who is therefore disabled, by definition, Hajj is not wajib upon him, but he is allowed to perform Hajj, provided obviously he makes the necessary arrangements and that there are people that are able to assist him. However, what we will find now in the current environment of Hajj is that the Saudi government, via the Ministry of Hajj, has put in certain, what we would refer to as restrictions. Certain categories of people are now not being allowed to come for Hajj. They're not being allowed to come for Hajj, whether it be in terms of medical reasons, like some people are on dialysis, or people who've got certain other problematic medical conditions, people who are of a certain age. If they're in well in advanced age, then they're no longer being allowed to come for Hajj. Now we must bear in mind that traditionally we would have found that those people went for Hajj. So now we think Saudi government is creating problems. You understand? Because they're not allowing the people to come for Hajj and this and that. But you must bear in mind that technically speaking, that falls within the definitions of man istata'a. So those people that are for now, and we don't know what's going to happen into the future, not being given, visas or permits to come for Hajj, it is because in the estimation of the Ministry of Hajj, because of their health conditions, because of their physical conditions, because of their age, Hajj is not wajib upon them. So it is not necessary for them, it's not compulsory for them to perform Hajj. So you must bear in mind that in the current environment, many of the restrictions that have come in is actually the the observance of the requirements of Sharia. So if a person, for his particular circumstances does not have Hajj becoming compulsory upon him, even though he's got the desire to go for Hajj. Now, we generally believe that every person who has the desire to go for Hajj should be allowed to go for Hajj. However, from the perspective of the Sharia, although the person may be allowed to go for Hajj, Hajj is not compulsory upon that person. So nowadays, via the Ministry of Hajj, if Hajj is not compulsory upon the person, then in all likelihood the person will not be issued a visa to come for Hajj, especially those who are wheelchair bound also. You understand, there are many restrictions that are being put into place now, but these restrictions are because of what the Sharia defines a person to actually need to qualify for Hajj. So it's not new things being introduced by the Saudi government. It is the existing stipulations of the Sharia that is just more strictly being observed. And then from the hadith, Nabi Sallam advises that Bunya al-Islam ala khams, that Islam is built on 5 pillars, and then Hajj al-Bayt is one of them. Going to the Baytullah, we will find very prominently mentioned in here, which is the Kaaba Sharif and Masjied al-Haram. It features very prominently in Hajj and Umrah. And then the scholars disagree whether Hajj should be performed immediately, and this is the only real with regards to whether Hajj is compulsory, whether it should be performed immediately when the person meets the requirements, or whether the person may delay it. And again, when it comes to meeting the requirements, it is determined at the commencement of the season of Hajj. So the season of Hajj starts after Ramadan. After Ramadan, when it comes to Shawwal, the season of Hajj starts in the month of Shawwal. So if in the month of Shawwal, the person has the financial means, he's got the health, the way to travel is easy for him, he's got his arrangements for accommodation, etc., when he will be in Medina, when he will be in Makkah, then under those circumstances, Hajj becomes compulsory upon him. And nowadays, of course, we have the additional requirement of the person being issued with a visa. And the reason for this obviously is because they need to restrict numbers. And as we go through, you come to understand why there is a need to restrict numbers. If we take, for example, our masjid here, how many people you think can fit into the masjid? On estimate, 1,000. Our masjid can accommodate 1,000 people. Now, for that 1,000 people, we need to have certain facilities, and we also need to have certain safety measures in place. Now, what will happen if we put 2,000 people into the masjid? Do you think it will be a problem, or you think the masjid should be able to accommodate it? What do you think? It will be a problem. Why? Because the size of the masjid is such that it can only accommodate a certain amount of people. Now, when it comes to the mashair, to places like Arafah, to Muzdalifah and Mina, and even the Haram itself, it can only hold a certain capacity of people. And that area has been minimized by the introduction of facilities like bathroom facilities, medical facilities, so many cleaning facilities and roads, because to provide all of that only minimizes the amount of space that is available, and therefore only a certain number of people can be accommodated. That's also why we find, in order to try and facilitate for more space, those who have been for Hajj might know that a place called Mina, Mina generally referred to as tent city, because that's the place where the people traditionally, they would stay there for a number of days and they would put up a tent. Then the Saudi government, we had the issues with the fires and the stampedes at the Jamarat. So they introduced fireproof tents. So now people couldn't put up their own tents anymore. People couldn't do their own cooking anymore. You couldn't bring your gas stove. You couldn't make any fires. So because of safety reasons. But then now, in terms of the space, the amount of people that want to come for Hajj, because the Muslim Ummah, alhamdulillah, is growing, alhamdulillah. But now it cannot accommodate the amount of people, so now they're trying to do away with the tents, and what they are providing or gradually introducing is like we would have, our flats. So people, instead of having a tent where you can only accommodate a certain number of people in that same area, because now it will be multi-layered. There will be a number of different floors that can now accommodate for more people, and all this just to provide for more people being able to be accommodated. So in carrying on from where we left off, so it is important for us to distinguish between three things. And very often people become confused regarding these three things. Number one is Hajj. What is Hajj? Number two, what is Umrah? And number three, what is Ziyarah? Because they are not the same. They are not the same. Now the reason I mention Hajj first is because Hajj is the bigger of the lot. Hajj is the bigger of the lot. So why is it important for us to be able to distinguish between these three things? Reason being, number one, so that we can know our objectives. What is it that I am traveling for? What is it that I am spending my money and time for? It's important for me, because if I'm not sure and clear on what it is that I'm going to have to do whilst I'm in this journey, then it might just be that I become distracted. Like the person those days in Cape Town station, they had all of the shops there. Now you go to the train station to take a train, but then all of the shops are there. So you start doing window shopping because you still have time. You understand? And you do window shopping and and by the time you realize, your train has left. So you got distracted, and then the actual thing that you were supposed to achieve, then you fall short in that. Now, if you, in your journey, you are clear what your journey is for, because generally we will refer to our journey only as Hajj or Umrah. Only as Hajj or Umrah. But part of the Hajj and part of the Umrah is also Ziyarah. Ziyarah is included. Understand? Now, very often we hear people say that they're going to Palestine for Umrah. Palestine is not part of Umrah. Palestine is part of your journey, but Palestine in itself is not an aspect of Umrah. People we go to Medina. We say we're going for Umrah. We said, unfortunately, I'll try to minimize the Afrikaans, because from what I understand, there's people from America and some other places that don't know the Afrikaans. So if I speak Afrikaans too much, they're at a bit of a loss. Understand? So people, we go to Medina, and then we say, with regards to Medina, we speak about it as part of our Umrah. Understand? But visiting Medina is not part of Umrah. It is part of our journey, because we refer to the journey by the most important part of it. But we must understand what is the Umrah, what is the Hajj, and the remainder of our journey is referred to as Ziyarah. So visiting Palestine is not part of Hajj, and it is not part of Umrah. Visiting Madinatul Munawwara is not part of Hajj, it is not part of Umrah. Those are extras that we add into the journey. But Umrah and Hajj are specific forms of ibadah. So it's important for us to be aware of that and take cognizance of that. I mentioned this, but I didn't indicate to it, so that we can spend our time and our energies wisely. Now you go for Umrah, but you spend such a lot of your time and your energy in the ziyaras. When it comes to the Umrah, you don't have the energy to give that your all. Or you spend such a lot of your time in other things, then when it comes to your Hajj, and we alhamdulillah, when we were, still on the Hajj mission, we find that so many people, there was a Sau clinic, and the people would come to the clinic and they would want the vitamin B injection, and they would want the Voltaren injection, and they want this medication and that medication. But the most important thing they didn't do, they didn't prioritize what was the most important thing for them to do and to preserve the energies for that. Then the people want to do lots of nafil ibadah. And then when it comes to the Hajj, which was the whole objective and which was the fard, they didn't have the energy. All Hajj, they were on a drip. You understand? They want to do the walking Hajj, which it's fine. There's nothing wrong with doing a walking Hajj, for example. You understand? Nabi Sallallahu himself, however, didn't do a walking Hajj. So it is not really true to consider a walking Hajj as closer to Sunnah, nor is it true to consider the walking Hajj as more virtuous or more meritorious than using the modes of transport. Nabi Sallallahu himself performed his Hajj, Mina, Arafah. Even Nabi Sallam's tawaf was done on a camel. Even Nabi Sallam's tawaf. Imagine, he didn't even walk around the Kaaba at the time of his tawaf. Nabi Sallam was on a camel back. You understand? One of the reasons ulama say for this was so that Nabi Sallam could be visible and people could see what they had to do. This is one of the reasons they give. But the fact is, Nabi Sallam did not walk. So now people walk, then they come and they become dehydrated, and they faint and they collapse and they end up in the clinic and they end up at the hospital. And then the days of Hajj, they are incapacitated. Or when it comes to the Umrah, they are incapacitated. So it's important for us to know what each one of those three things are, so that we spend our time and our energies wisely. So if we look at the Hajj, so the key components of the rituals of Hajj, it is to don the ihram, which means entering the sacred state with specific clothing, white clothes for men, and an intention at a designated station, a miqat. So the ihram, it is necessary in Hajj, and ihram comes with a number of restrictions. Now we're just going to mention these, we're going to go into greater details with all of this. Today I'm just going to do a complete overview of the entire Hajj and Umrah, because Umrah is also generally, when we perform Hajj, included in our Hajj. Then we have the standing at Arafah, which is referred to, as the wukuf at Arafah. And this is the most vital act, according to majority of the scholars, of Hajj, because Nabi Sallallahu says in the hadith, Al-Hajju Arafah. That Hajj is about being on Arafah. And Arafah is a unique day. Generally for us, when our Islamic day starts, it starts from Maghrib till Maghrib. You understand? So today, in terms of the Islamic day, it started last night with Maghrib, and it ends with Maghrib tonight. The only day that is different is Arafah. The day of Arafah is from Maghrib, not until Maghrib, but until the next morning Fajr. So even if a person is not able to be on Arafah before Maghrib on the 9th, but he can be there before Fajr on the 10th, he is considered to have achieved wukuf on Arafah. It is the only day of its nature in the Islamic calendar. And the place Arafah is also only significant for us at that time. If you go to Arafah now, it means nothing. It's only a ziyarah. It's not Hajj. You can go to Arafah any other day of the year, but it will only be a ziyarah. It will not count as Hajj. It will not even count as ibadah. But on that day, you just sit there, you just sleep there, you just lie there. Preferably you should stand there in dua, and your whole life's sins becomes forgiven. That is the uniqueness of Arafah. May Allah grant us all the opportunity to stand there, especially those who have not yet stood there. Then we have Muzdalifah and Mina. Muzdalifah and Mina are also two of the areas. Muzdalifah, you basically spend a night or a portion of a night. according to the differences of opinion of the various scholars. You either have to spend the whole night there. Some say you have to spend the half of the night there. Some say you have to spend a portion of the night there. Some say you have to spend, a third of the night there. Some opinions are even that you only need to spend that amount of time there, that it requires you to get off your conveyance. In those days there were camels, so it refers to a camel. To get off your camel or your conveyance, to take off your belongings, to take wudu, to perform your salah, your maghrib and isha that you must join there, and to have a meal, and then after that to pack your conveyance and to leave again. That is the minimum amount of time according to some of the scholars. However, all of us will be traveling and we will be taking guidance from the ulama that we will be traveling with. So my advice is always take the advice of those ulama that you are traveling with. And again, all of these different opinions are what is referred to as therefore rukhsa, for wus'ah, for making the masail and the ahkam of our sharia as vast as possible, so that in between you can see, according to your personal circumstances, what is more suitable for you. Remember, we don't take rukhsas for convenience. It is because if we don't take it, there will be a source of difficulty and harm for us. Then under those circumstances we refer it to our ulama. If they give us a ruling that we should practice on a particular concession, a particular rukhsa, then we take that rukhsa, insha'Allah. So alhamdulillah, there we have an example of the ihram. You will find that for the ladies, generally they wear white, but they are not restricted to white. Ladies can wear their general clothing. Now there's a distinction when we speak about ihram. There's a distinction between the clothing of ihram and the state of ihram. It's two different things. When a person wears the clothing of ihram, he is not necessarily in the state of ihram. The state of ihram is something different. The state of ihram, a person enters when, in addition to wearing the clothing, he makes the intention to perform the ibadah of Umrah or of Hajj. So it is when that intention becomes coupled with the clothing that we are wearing that we are now considered to be in ihram. If you wear the clothing but you've not yet made the intention, you are not yet considered to be in the state of ihram. Ihram is a state, and it's a state of holiness and sanctity that the person puts himself into voluntarily, and as a result of that choice that he exercises to put himself into that state, certain things become prohibited to him. Men generally, as we know, wears the two towels, and that is all they wear actually. Understand? That is basically all they wear. Men do not wear what is referred to as stitched clothing as part of their ihram. Stitched clothing, ulama define to be such clothing that are normally made in accordance with the shape of the body. Like what I'm wearing now is a kurta. This is referred to as stitched clothing. Why? Because it is made, our general clothing is made in order to fit the particular shape of our body. And we have, top clothing, bottom clothing, etc. But when it comes to ihram, it is just two pieces of cloth. And we normally have the big, towels. And the reason for this is because, number one, it is cotton, it is cooler. Number two, because a person wears only that. So if it becomes a bit cooler, then that also, is helpful. And also because the person sweats, so the toweling material absorbs more of the sweat. And as you can see here also, this part of the shoulder being open, this is referred to, the right shoulder being open, this is referred to as ittiba. And generally it is considered that this shoulder being open, it is considered to be masnoon, for sunnah, for the men to have their shoulders open for the entire tawaf. And some ulama say that only for the first 3 shouts, when the first 3 rounds that you go around the Kaaba, which is also when a person does what is referred to as ramal. Ramal means a brisk walk, almost like a run. And that is Jabal Rahmah, subhanallah. Jabal Rahmah, this is where people go to have their sins forgiven. Jabal Rahmah is a unique place. It is also considered to be the place where Hadrat Adam alayhi salam and Hawa alayhi salatu was salam met each other again after Allah Ta'ala took them out of Jannah and put them into the dunya, and they met up here, and this is the place, and that is why it's referred to as Arafah. Arafah means to recognize something. So this is the place where they recognize one another. And also Arafah, because we find the verse of Quran that Allah Ta'ala tells us that, "O mankind, we created you from a single pair, وَجَعَلْنَكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا." And we made you into tribes and nations, lita'arafu, so that you can recognize one another and learn from one another. And the only place where that is achieved on a global scale, people from all over the world, is at Arafah. At Arafah, understand? So this is the place where the Ummah gets together in order to come to know each other. Another meaning ulama give for this Arafah is i'tiraf. I'tiraf means to make a confession. So this is the place where you come to confess to Allah that you've done certain things against Allah's commands, you've done certain things to displease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you confess your shortcomings and you ask for forgiveness. And the beauty of it is that you don't need to express it. You don't need to express it. Different people communicate with Allah differently. Different languages. That is why you even find in tawaf, it is not necessary to say your du'as in Arabic. You understand? Very often people, they make the du'as in Arabic, but they don't really appreciate what they say. Whereas you say your Arabic du'as, but more than that, you speak to Allah. This is the place you come, you speak to Allah in your own language. In your own language, in a way, you see, so part of our journey is to build this connection with Allah. So that when we get there, we can have a, you can have a lekker conversation with Allah. You can have a nice conversation with Allah, and knowing that even though all those people are there, Allah's listening to you. Allah's listening to you, and you can speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is Mina, tent city. So this is basically what Mina looks like. But the point is, as you can see, although there's tents everywhere, it is in a designated place. And besides those tents, there's a number of other facilities there. Roads, bathroom facilities, shower facilities, medical facilities. So all of those things takes up space. And as a result of this, you can only fit a certain amount of people in there. So Mina becomes your home for most of the journey of Hajj, because Hajj is essentially 5 days. The 8th, the 9th, the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 5, some 6 if you do the full 3 days of the Ayyam al-Tashriq. So then, because you go to Mina on the 8th day, from Mina you go to Arafah on the 9th day, on the morning of the 9th. The evening of the 9th you spend at Muzdalifah. The morning of the 9th you go to Mina, because Mina is also where you find the Jamarat. You go and pelt the Jamaratul Aqaba, and then from there you go into Makkah to make your tawaf, and then from Makkah you come back to Mina, and then you stay there on Mina. So your Labarang, your Eid day, you start at Muzdalifah, you go to Mina, you go to Makkah, and you come back to Mina. You come back to Mina. So that Eid day, when other people are having, their nice enjoyment, etc., they're busy slaughtering, you are in that day, it will be the most intense day of your life. That Eid, and believe me, you'll never ever forget that Eid day in your entire life. It will be your most difficult Eid, but it will be your nicest Eid also. You won't even know it's Eid. You won't even know it's Eid. Tonight, when everything is finished, and you make perhaps contact, because now these people can, via telephone and so on, they can make contact with their families, and now the family is speaking about Eid and so on. You know nothing of that. Subhanallah. it's really for me just to speak about these things. It's, ya salam. Dat maak later means a ticket or a book, man. Ya Allah. So you will find that when you book, that's why they say when you book for your hotels and your accommodation, generally South Africans are very, we don't stay in 5-star places when we are here at home. Makkah and Medina, we want 5-star. You understand? We want 5-star. So then Makkah you'll have 5-star, and then Medina you'll have 5-star. Then when you come, generally we come to Azizia. And then when we come to Azizia, you have your 3-star, 4-star perhaps. Then you go to Mina, which will be like 3-star. You go to Arafah, 3-star. Then you come to Muzdalifah in the evening. And as you can see here, you can see the rocks, you can see the sand. Now this is what they call all-star. Yeah, this is all-star. Why? Because there's absolutely nothing there. All that you have is the stars above you, so you can see all of the stars. So this is your all-star accommodation. For those people who are used to camping, you understand? People used to camping, they might find this manageable. They might find it manageable, but there's nothing there. The only thing that is there is toilet facilities, and you should not be surprised that while you are there, you're so tired, you fall asleep. And you'll fall asleep when there's nobody next to you, and when you wake up, the whole world is there. You don't even know the people that is next to you. You understand? And another thing is, for us, we are South Africa. So which continent are we part of? So you will be put with Africa. So when you are on Hajj, don't get surprised if you see Africa there. You understand? Don't be surprised. But nowadays I believe that is different, because now especially how we as South Africans will be doing Hajj now, because we won't be doing Hajj as a country anymore. You understand? We now have the different Saudi Hajj operators, and any people who are on the system from all over the world can book with those operators. You understand? So it is very likely that when you book for your Hajj, you will be traveling with people from all over the world, and you will be with them even on Mina, on Arafah, on Muzdalifah. You will be with all of those different people. And the one thing I can tell you is that when you have this experience, especially during the days of Hajj, don't become affected with those things. Don't become affected by the lack of resources. Don't become affected by having to stand in a queue with people to use a toilet. You just go with the flow. And the easiest thing for you to do is don't go with any expectations. Because if you've got no expectations, then whatever you get is good enough. But if you go that the toilets must be like this and this must be like that, then it's going to be very difficult for you. Because now you're forever going to be frustrated. And then you're going to find that in that frustration, it'll be very difficult for you to actually remain focused on your ibadah. And that is why, as part of your preparation, you understand, be aware of these circumstances so that you are not overwhelmed when you get there. And try to go camping for a day. Go camping for a day, and you have your musla there, and you sleep on the musla on the sand. Don't take a mattress with, because they lazy boy and he silly postopedic. You're not going to be able to take it with you. Or that you generally have here, you sometimes have that piece of foam, that you can use. But other than that, even on Arafah the same, on Arafah the same. Generally they give you a carpet, and then they give you like a bit of a mattress, but you hardly use it. But make yourself accustomed to that. And the things one of the things I encourage the people to do, because one of the things that you'll find there a lot, that will actually make your life a bit easier also, is the flat pan toilet, what they call the Indian toilet. If you can make yourself accustomed to using that, then that is very easy. It helps a lot. I'll tell you why. Because generally you do get the high pan toilets also. But now I don't know about you, but if I come into a public toilet and the toilet is wet, then that just puts me off. Unless you need to have, then otherwise you need to clean the toilet before you use it. And it is unfortunate that has become the condition. It is generally clean water, because it means that whoever uses the toilet, they clean themselves. And very often what the people do, they use the toilet, they make istinja, and then because they want to clean the toilet for you who's coming after them, they pour a lot of water over the toilet. But now the problem is, if you use the high pan, a lot of that water that they throw on the toilet also ends up on the floor. You understand? So now especially, go in there and the floor is wet and you have to use the toilet, and it's just, for me personally, it's a bit off-putting. That's why, alhamdulillah, I'm very comfortable with using a flat pan. And whenever I'm traveling, I always look for the flat pan, because when you use the flat pan, you don't have to touch anything, because you squat. So you don't have to touch anything. But then obviously you also need to make yourself used to the squat. And if we're not used to it, then but also if you squat, you can hold onto the walls if needs be. You understand? Sometimes they've got a rail there, but I'm just telling you, because here in these places, that's the kind of toilets. Now you find that the queue for the flat pan toilets, there's 5 people in the queue. The high pan, there's 100 people in the queue. You understand? So for your own, making things easier, try to learn how to use the flat pan toilets, inshallah. And then we have to do the rami, the stoning of the jamarat. Now those pebbles you get there at Muzdalifah. You spend the night there and you also collect your stones there, inshallah. So then you also go and do your tawaful ifada, which is the tawaf that is compulsory and part of the Hajj. So the pelting of the jamarat on the day of Eid, you pelt Aqaba, 7 stones. Then thereafter, you pelt, if you pelt staying for 2 days or 3 days, you have to pelt all 3 jamarat, 7, 7, 7. So 7 times 3 is 21. If you're pelting 3 days, that's how much? 63 plus 7, that's how many small stones you need. And when they speak about stones, they're speaking about bricks, no? Are you gonna get? No, they're speaking about this pea size, that size, small stones. And what they do, people throw the stones there at the jamarat, and then they collect the stones and then they take it back and scatter it again at Muzdalifah. You understand?
If you visit the store in Moulana, but apparently they also now giving it to you already in a pack.
Yeah. In most instances, because the reason for this is because a lot of the normal stones, you see, they've introduced paving at Muzdalifah. So because of that, it's difficult for people to gather the stones. So they also have it in packets that you can now acquire it there. Yeah. So then also the tawaf al-ifada, as I was mentioning, about the 7 circles that the person has to go around the Kaaba. This tawaf is part of your Hajj. And then the sa'i, where we're walking between Safa and Marwa, like how Hadrat Hajara did. So just to give you an idea, this is an aerial view of the Jamarat. Now you'll see that there is a number of bridges also going in, and you basically come in from depending on where they require you to different countries come at different times, or different groups come at different times, and there's 3 levels. There's a bottom, a middle, and a top. So depending on where they require you to enter. Now one of the things that you will find is that the area is enclosed, it's got that shading over it. So the guy who's throwing at the top, his stones is falling down. You understand? His stones is falling, but I'll show you how it's been designed now, that the stones, no longer, in the olden days there was basically a pillar about my height, and then the pillar got made taller, and then they built like a stone wall. I'll show it to you now, that people, which represents now the Jamarat. Why? In order to facilitate for people hitting the actual stone. Because when there was a pillar about my height, the guy on that side throws all the way across, he hits the one on the other side. So, the Jamarat became a very dangerous place for people because of the pelting of the stones. And some people, they become so, excited with throwing the shaitan. They throw their sloffies, they throw these umbrellas and all of those things. Understand? That's why sometimes you see some very, very strange things happening here at the Jamarat. The other thing also about the Jamarat is that we've had stampedes here before. Because people come in their droves, and it's all about coordination. And how the stampedes happen, generally they require everybody to come in from one side and to exit the other side. You understand? So you've got Sughra, Wusta and Kubra. Sughra, the small Jamarat, Wusta, the middle, and then Kubra, the big Jamarat. Now what happens is everybody comes in from the same side. But now some people, they don't want to take the long walk back to where they are based on Mina. So they're looking for a shortcut. So they think the shortest way is to come back. And then when they come back into the crowds, it creates a problem. Also, when people are walking in the crowds, you must be careful. I mean, even in my own experience, not too long ago, we were walking, and then all of a sudden, it just, die grond het net nie reg gevoel nie. You understand? It just didn't feel, the ground just didn't feel like it felt like the ground was moving. And when we looked down, we saw there were people lying underneath us. Because it was people, I don't know what went wrong, but people fell. And because whoever is behind you, they keep moving. So if you fall, you're in a problem. Therefore, it's important that if we have people with us, that we should support each other. That's why some countries now, as they go towards the Jamarat, they hook each other and then they walk like this. And especially if you are going husband and wife together, my brother, your first job is you look after that wife. You make sure nothing happens to her. You understand? You secure her. If there's pushing, you have to be there to push back. And that is why generally on the mataf, when people do tawaf, when people are going to pelt the Jamarat, my recommendation always is your wife walks in front of you with you keeping your hands on her shoulders. She walks, you walk. If anybody push, you've got your elbows and your body weight to push so as to protect her. Because once people start pushing her and you get separated, problem. Whereas if you have her by the shoulders, at least you've got a certain degree. And also, you can observe, you understand, how the crowd is moving, so you can always direct her this way, that way. But you must be vigilant. You must pay attention. And that is why at the Jamarat, and when you enter the Jamarat, they've got blowers there or air conditioners. But when you move in there, because of the volumes of people that is there, it's a scary sound. It's a scary sound if you haven't been there before, especially now with the new kind of construction. It's like it's not like a shout, it was, oh, salam. Understand? So, but again, you are unaffected by any of that. You just go there and stay focused on what you must do. And all that you must do is get as close as possible to the Jamarat. You take out your 7 stones, Bismillah Allahu Akbar, and you throw. Bismillah Allahu Akbar, Bismillah Allahu Akbar, you throw your stone. Also in pelting, it's all part of the Masail, we're going to get there still. You can't take all your 7 stones, Bismillah Allahu Akbar, and pelt. That is counted as 1. Because sometimes you go, I'm not going to go in here, it's getting rough in here, just want to get it over with. You must take all your stones at one time and throw. That doesn't count. That counts only as 1 throw. Now you're sitting with the problem, you don't have any more stones to throw. You must see what other Buddha stones there, you must take his stones. This is what it currently looks like. See, there's the canopy now, this is at the top floor. Now when you are on the ground floor or the middle floor, you can't actually see the canopy. Now this is the top floor, then around it there is like a boundary wall about this high, it's about waist high, all around, and there's like a sieve. So as you throw the stones, it drops down. As you throw the stones, it drops down, and from there it becomes collected. So now you can see where's now generally, as you come around, you will find that most people here in the center part of that big stone, you understand? And that stone, it's probably about 6 meters. probably about 6 meters, and it's high. So anywhere you hit that stone is fine. But you will find that most people want to be in the center. My recommendation generally is, when the crowd is there, you go around the crowd and you go to one of the end, especially the furthest end, because most people, they come to because it will be facing you like this. You understand? So you go past it. So most people will be in the front of it at the beginning and on the side. Very few people go around towards this. So most people will be on that end and on the side, but very few people generally come to this side here. So you go around the crowd, you come to that side there, and you pelt from there. Understand? And then when the crowds move, and you do your pelting, and you move away, because there's a constant flow of people here. And then we go obviously into Makkah, and we do our tawaf. That's a imagery of the Baytullah, giving an indication of what we have there. And you will find that you will generally start your tawaf at the Hajar al-Aswad, and going 7 times around. So now it is going 7 times around is your tawaf. Some people under the impression that going 7 times around is 1 tawaf. You understand? And then they have to go it 7 times, and they do 49 times they go around the Kaaba. You only go around the Kaaba 7 times. Now, to start with the tawaf, generally you would touch the black stone, you would make your niyyah, you touch the black stone, the Hajar al-Aswad, and then you start going around. However, it is generally not possible, especially in Hajj, because the crowds are huge. So you do istilam. Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, you point your hands towards it, you kiss your hands, and then you start, and you go around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then you again, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, you greet after your 7th time. And then this is an indication of the Maqami Ibrahim. To come behind the Maqami Ibrahim, you do your 2 rak'ats of Salah. And thereafter, if you're looking at where the Maqami Ibrahim is, where the Hajar Ismail is, towards this side there is an exit with a ramp that goes up to the Masa. Masa is the place where you do your sa'i. So after you do that, you go up the side, and then you go to the Masa, which is the place where you do your sa'i, and that is what it looks like. And now with the numbers that was present in Umrah, this is how the Masa looked like. So this is actually taken from Safa side. So Safa will be on this side, Marwa will be on that side. I'm not sure if you can see it on the picture, but if you see in between, like in this side here, there's a little gap between the pillars. You can see on that side, this is only the one side. What we are seeing is only the one. This is the people coming from Marwa back to Safa. On the other side of these pillars here, there you find the people who are still going up from Safa to Marwa. So what you're seeing here is only half of the people. This is only an indication of half of the people. You understand? And then there you can see some green lighting, which is a bit more clear in this picture. Now that green lighting is the area that used to be the lowest point between Safa and Marwa. That is the area where Hadrat Hajara would run. You understand? So generally when you do your sa'i, when you come to the areas where these green lights are, when you are in Safa, you walk about 50 meters and then you get this. Then you run, and then you have to do the remainder of the distance up until Marwa. You come by Marwa, you come back, and then as you come towards Safa, again you find these green lights. So you do this running, going up, you do the running, coming down. You start at Safa to Marwa, Marwa to Safa, Safa to Marwa, Marwa to Safa, Safa to Marwa, Marwa to Safa, Safa to Marwa. So you will start at Safa and you will end at Marwa. Now just remember, this is all just as an overview. No? We're still going to go into details in terms of certain masail that relates to all of this stuff. And then in addition, after you've done this on the day of Eid, this is what you do on the day of Eid. You do the pelting of the jamarat, you do the tawaf of the Kaaba, and you do your sa'i. Now can you imagine how tired you are? Because where are you coming from? You are having to walk all the way from Muzdalifah the morning into Mina. From Mina walking, these bus services also, and they're trying to get it functional better, but generally most people walk. And then you walk, so for that day, you are looking at easily in total walking about 30 plus kilometers for the day in terms of your walking. Because from Muzdalifah to Mina, from Mina into Makkah, then you count your 7 rounds around the Kaaba, you count your 7 up and down from Safa to Marwa, you're walking back to Mina, you are looking easily at more than 30 kilometers walk only on that day. So can we understand why preparing in terms of our health is important for Hajj? When we are there to ensure that we eat properly, that we remain hydrated, because one of your biggest problems in this is dehydration. And once you become dehydrated, your muscles start cramping, your head starts paining, your stomach starts cramping, then it becomes very problematic. And on that day also, because you are in Ihram, now generally because we do Tamattu Hajj. Tamattu and Qiran is a form of Hajj. There's 3 forms of Hajj. Ifrat, Qiran, Tamattu. Now the difference between Tamattu and Qiran is that you get to join your Umrah with Hajj. Like we normally do, we do Umrah, we go for Hajj, we do a Umrah first, then we come out of the Ihram, then we put on the Ihram again for Hajj. The other is where the person comes in Ihram, performs Umrah, remains in that Ihram, and then does his Hajj as well. That is what we refer to as Qiran. But Tamattu and Qiran, one of the things, because you are now getting the benefit of doing 2 ibadat in one journey. Because otherwise you would have to go for Umrah, and then come home, and then go for Hajj again. But now because Allah Ta'ala gives you the ni'mah, the bounty, tamatta'a means to enjoy something. Allah Ta'ala gives you the enjoyment of doing an Umrah along with your Hajj. So because of that, Allah Ta'ala requires of you to give something back to Allah. And this is by way of a hadi. Now generally, our Hajj packages, because it is known that we are doing the tamattu Hajj, our hadi, our sacrificial animal, is included in our Hajj package. So it is not something that we need to do extra. Our problem very often is that because of the number of animals that needs to be slaughtered, our animal has a number. My animal that needs to be slaughtered for me has a number. Now I can only come out of my ihram once that animal has been slaughtered. So on one occasion there was a problem at one of the abattoirs, and they were not able to slaughter the animals in time, and the people, generally we would come out of our ihram by the evening of the 10th, because animals would be slaughtered as well, and all the other requirements for coming out of the ihram would be met. Because of the problem at the abattoir, they couldn't slaughter the animals, so the people had to remain in the ihram until the following day, because you can't come out of the ihram until the animals are not sacrificed. And then shaving or halq of the hair or taqsir. A person can either shave his hair to come out of the ihram also, or he can make taqsir, means to just clip some of the hair. Qasara means to shorten. It means to shorten. However, it is preferred for men. This is not for ladies. No? The shaving of the head, the halq, is not for the ladies. Kanalat it is. So the halq is encouraged for men. Why? Because it is such that people have a certain degree of pride in their hair. You understand? So the shaving of the head is an indication of our humility to Allah Ta'ala. You understand? So we are encouraged, although just clipping the hair, shortening it, is also accepted. However, Nabi Sallam made dua. Allah maghfir lil mukhallikin, Allah maghfir lil mukhallikin wa lil muqassirin. Oh Allah, forgive the people who shave their hair, and forgive also those who cut their hair. But 3 times that's for the people who shave, and only once for the people who shorten their hair. And then we do our farewell tawaf, which is the tawaful wida. And this is the final tawaf that the person does before he comes home. Final tawaf that the person does. So the person, some people say that if you've done the tawaf Tawaf al-Wida, then you can't go to the Haram anymore. There's ikhtilaf on that. Some ulama say, if you go, it just means that you don't go for tawaf. It means you can go for salah, but you don't do tawaf. But other than that, before we leave, we have to do the farewell tawaf, the tawaful wada. So then this is an indication of our slaughtering. You understand? We have to slaughter our hadi. In the beginning, it looks like that. Very clever and sticks a tongue out for us. You understand? And then we make contact with this animal and eventually we slaughter him. And that's all that will remain of him. So that is the gist of Hajj. Now we're still going to detail with all of those different parts. Understand? And then, as I was mentioning about the difference between Hajj and Umrah. Now for Umrah, you'll find it is a much shorter version of the Hajj. Certain things are included and certain things are excluded. Now I've explained this before, so I'm not going to go into all of the details. But for the Umrah, we have the Ihram, but the only difference is now we make the intention of putting on the Ihram for the purpose of Umrah and not Hajj. We must do the Tawaf. This is Tawaful Umrah. For the Hajj, we have Tawaful Ifada. We have Tawaful Ifada. So for the Umrah, we do Tawaf of Umrah. And then we also do the Sa'i. So that is the two common. The Ihram, the Tawaf and the Sa'i is common in the Hajj and the Umrah. And then also the same way how we come out of Ihram is the Halq. The shaving or the shortening of the hair. For women, generally they just need to clip, take a few strands of hair and just cut off a small piece for them to get out of the ihram. For men, either shave or shorten the hair. And then we come to our ziyarats. Now the ziyarah is the visitation to sacred sites in Makkah, Medina, and may also include Palestine. Now you can see here that all of the places that we go to visit had nothing to do with the Hajj and the Umrah. Hajj and Umrah are forms of ibadat. They are ibadah. So it is important that a person understands this very nicely. Otherwise he's going to spend time on ziyaras and not be fit for the Hajj or the Umrah if he's going for Umrah. Okay, especially the three holy mosques, Masjied al-Aqsa, Masjid al-Haram and Masjid al-Nabawi. And ziyarah is a significant act of devotion focusing on spiritual connection and reverence. It is a significant act of devotion, but it is not an act of ibadah like Hajj and Umrah. And there we have a beautiful picture, you understand, of Masjid al-Nabawi. That is a picture of Masjid al-Nabawi by night. We go to visit it. May Allah Ta'ala grant all of us to go there. So I'm going to conclude on that for today. So also just on this, Hajj generally includes both Umrah and Ziyarah, and Umrah generally also includes the Ziyarah. But don't exhaust yourself with Nafil Umrahs. Now the person thinks, I'm going to do as many Umrahs as I can, and then from the time he reaches Makkah, he does Umrah every day. Then it comes to Hajj, the person is exhausted. You understand? With Nafil Umrahs and Ziyaras before Hajj, or too many Ziyaras before Umrah, you must stay focused on your priority. If you've come for Umrah, you first ensure, yes, you go and visit your sites, but you don't overdo it. And especially when you come to Makkah, normally the first thing that you do when you come into Makkah is that you perform your Umrah. Thereafter, you take some rest, and then you see, how is your physical state, and then if you can manage, then you do another Nafil Umrah. But when it comes to Hajj, please, for us, we come in with Umrah, but between that Umrah and that Hajj, let us try to recoup and ensure that because as you can see, just that one day of the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, how intense that day is. And then you generally find that the people who did all of those Nafil Umrahs all the time, when it comes to Arafah, they conquer. On Arafah day they collapse, and then you have to put them on the drips, and you have to do this to them. And some people, they do the walking Hajj and they don't prepare properly and the legs cramp up and the feet are full of blisters, and then instead of your Hajj being a spiritually uplifting experience, it is more of a medical experience than anything else. Okay, so Hajj and Umrah are both physically extremely taxing experiences. So may Allah Ta'ala give us tawfiq. And then next week, inshallah, I'm going to do an overview also of how we perform Hajj in Cape Town. From beginning, from the time that we start making our intention until the time when we get home, inshallah. So on the things that we discussed today about Hajj and Umrah, we are still going to go into the detail of the Masail and also the logistics. As we take each one of these, in fact, the reason I want to do the overview, I just wanted for now, for everybody to understand what it is when we are going for Hajj, what we are in for. When we're going for Umrah, what we are in for, so that we don't spend too much time on the unnecessary, it's not unnecessary, the ziyaras, but we don't overexert ourselves in the ziyaras and then we're not able to do our actual ibadah. You understand? And the overview that I'm going to do of the Cape Town Hajj is also to give you a step-by-step indication how we normally do things in our Hajj, how some of it now has changed. And then after that, when we deal with our Hajj, you'll see that we normally do Umrah first. So then I'll deal with the Masail related to Umrah, because that is common also to the Hajj. And thereafter we'll do the remainder of Hajj, inshallah. So on the things that has been mentioned today, I don't know if there's any questions, inshallah. Any questions? Two different things, yeah. Yes, because they're trying to keep the mataf free for the people who are doing Umrah. Because it is considered that the people who are in Ihram are the people who are doing Umrah. Because of the number of people, otherwise the mataf becomes too congested. I can tell you in my own experience now, the mataf was so full, ya salam. And the mataf is very deceptive. You see, sometimes we have these programs on the television and then we can see, like my wife, sy kyk heel dag, hy tawaf aan. You understand? Whole day, she watches it. En as ek by die huis kom, maar wil sy weet wanneer gaan ek vat vir Umrah. You understand? So, it's mesmerizing when you see how the people go so around the Kaaba. But I can tell you this much, to watch the people go around the mataf and to be on the mataf, two completely different things. If you're not in the ihram, now again, I understand what you are driving at, because everybody's asking that question. They call it a false ihram. Now, from my perspective, I don't say yes and I don't say no. I say istaftaq qalbak. You search your own heart. Because at-taqwa hahuna. Because the ladies, and it happens a lot, we see it, because the men and the women go together, because there's no specified clothing for the ladies for ihram, so all of the ladies can go onto the mataf. And that's why you will find that at the moment, majority of the people on the mataf are ladies. Now the ladies come with the men folk, but the men are stopped if they're not wearing the ihram. Now again, the question is it the state of ihram or is it the clothing of ihram? Because nobody knows when you're wearing the clothing of ihram whether you're also in the state of ihram or not. And I'm sure that the officials there also know that many of the people who are actually coming there and to be on the mataf, they're not actually in a state of ihram. They're just wearing the clothing of ihram. So that is why I mentioned in the beginning about the difference between the clothing of ihram and the state of ihram, because we generally just say that the person is in ihram. But when we say the person is in ihram, we generally mean the state of ihram. But it is not automatic that when the person is wearing the clothing, that is also in the state of ihram. So whether or not you now want to wear a false ihram, that is entirely up to you. Understand? I don't say yes, I don't say no. En moenie vir my vra wat het ek gedoen nie. understand? So like this, this is unfortunately what people do. And to be honest, you can't blame the people. Because when you do your Umrah and the Tawaf, you don't really have the opportunity to enjoy the Kaaba. You don't have the opportunity, although the other floors are there, you understand? But all of those other floors, on some of those floors, you're on such places where you can't even see the Kaaba. You can't even see the Kaaba. So now, because as you're doing your Umrah, it is all very controlled, the movements. Because they want the people to come in, do Tawaf, go to Sa'i, do the Sa'i, go out of the Haram. And in many instances, they don't allow you to come back into the Haram. Even if you are in a state of Haram, once you come basically to Marwa, there's officials there and they direct you to go out. You understand? So now you go out, you can't come back in. Now for that person who wants to go to the Mataf and to be close to the Kaaba, you understand? The only way for him now is he must either go back and do another Umrah and then take the opportunity, and because now he's not done his Umrah, so now he does a Nafil Umrah, so now he can take more time. He doesn't have to complete his Tawafs all in one go. He can sit a bit longer. You understand? In the Haram. The only other issue with that obviously is that being in Haram has got certain conditions. One of those conditions is that you should not wear any perfume. Now the people want to go and touch the Kaaba, and the Kaaba is smeared with perfume. People put all perfumes on it, etc. So now the question is, if you go and touch the Kaaba and there's perfume on it, the perfume comes onto you, what is the condition of your state of ihram? So all of these masail has to be considered. You understand? And Allah knows best. So that's the issue with the ihram for the purpose. Because you can go on the other floors, you can go on the first floor, you can go on the second floor, but again your problem is you can go on the roof also. From those areas in general, you're not able to see the Kaaba. From the roof perhaps you can see if you on the edge and you look over, but on the others when you do your tawaf, you're making tawaf around the Kaaba, but you just can't see it. You just can't see it. So it takes a bit of the ruhaniyat away. You understand? Yes. They don't make you ghusl, yeah. They don't ghusl.
What a lot of the men nowadays do is they put the 3/4 pants on, so they say under the bottom section, so that if they do see that night, they assume that the authorities would assume they're not in the state of Iran.
Yeah, that is true, but at the same time, if they find you like that in the mataf, they'll throw you out. And nonsense if you want that problem, because there's a fine attached. There's actually a fine attached to it. So either way you're doing, you're running a risk either way. You understand? But now, ja, daar is ook om jy moet maar verseker maak jy het 'n ghusl voor jy gaan tawaf. So as jy maningal daar, if you pass away, then it gives you know that you were clean, you didn't really need a ghusl. You understand? But and Allah knows best. Those are it is such that people pass away on the mataf, in the masa, but it is not something that we come across very often. So obviously it is hopeful, but it is a risk that the person is taking when he's doing so, and Allah knows best. Any other questions? No. Again, as I mentioned last week, I'm hopeful that you are finding this fruitful, but also if there's any suggestions that people would like to make also, or anything that people think we might need to change, then I would appreciate, inshallah, you doing that. May Allah Ta'ala grant us all tawfiq. Subhanallah wa bihamdi, subhanaka wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. And just one request from my side, if it is possible, we would ideally like to start at 11:30. You understand? Otherwise we run a bit tight for time. So I would just like to request, if it is possible, please, if people can make it for 11:30. Alternatively, whoever is here at the time, we will start next week at 11:30. And then whoever comes a bit later, then unfortunately, al-ghaibu mahrum, if you were absent for that part,